Hello everyone, and you're watching From Kentucky to Tokyo. My name is Jess, and I am doing a Japan News Roundup on Wednesday. But I'm living up to my namesake today and actually talking about something from Kentucky, and then going into Tokyo. So it's a little bit of both this time. Yay! Sorry, I just really want to talk about something that happened in my home state before I go on to other things that are important. So, disclaimer before we get started. I am not a news journalist. I am not a virologist. I'm not an epidemiologist. I am not an expert on fields. The only thing I'm good at is teaching English, and I've been doing that for 8 years. I have a communications minor, thought I was going to go into journalism, didn't do that. So, if you want to keep up with news and things, you can like this and hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications if you so wish. This will be on every Wednesday, except last week when it was on Friday because I got busy. Today, we're talking about, first, Kentucky news. So in Kentucky, at the Capitol building in Frankfort, there was a Second Amendment rally. There's a lot of those in America, in Kentucky, everywhere. There are a whole lot of rallies that just anytime somebody tries to amend any kind of gun bill, there will be a rally that talks about the Second Amendment rights and how we shouldn't take away guns from people. I'm not here to talk about that right now, but the thing that happened was during a rally, somebody came up with an effigy of Governor Andy Beshear. If you don't know what an effigy is, it's kind of a doll or a caricature of somebody, when usually they have like a mask or a face of a person that there's particularly attacking and trying to threaten with fear and hate. So generally speaking, an effigy is used in KKK circles and other super racist and extremist groups as a way to scare people that they don't want to be in charge or in a neighborhood or something like that. It's usually used that way. However, today it was used against Governor Andy Beshear. So somebody came up with this effigy, and it was plastic bags, and it has Governor Andy Beshear's face on it. They put it hanged it over a tree. So kind of symbolizing Governor Andy Beshear being hung. And on the effigy was the motto, Sic Semper Tyrannis, which means, thus always two tyrants, kind of, in Latin. So the motto, this motto, is originally associated with Brutus, who, of course, was part of the group that betrayed Julius Caesar because they thought Julius Caesar was taking too much power, and was taking so much power indeed that he had become a tyrant, and so they killed Julius Caesar. Long story short. And then it was also used again by John Wilkes Booth against Abraham in the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. He was said to have shouted as he shot him. So, on top of all this, though, it's Virginia's motto, state motto, and it's used by neo-Nazi groups. It's used by white supremacist groups. It's not as commonly used as other expressions that were taken from Nazi Germany and from other eugenic groups, but it is used by them. So it's not 100% though that, just like with most things with white supremacy or neo-Nazism, it's only something you would know maybe if you have been researching with racism and extreme groups and things like that. I only know about this because what was it, 2 or 3 years ago, my friend was doing some really in-depth research into the KKK in the South. And so that's the only reason I knew about this. The media hasn't actually talked about that at all, as far as I can tell, which is really interesting to me in particular, and here's why. So this is part of my reaction part. In America, we have this issue where there are people going into Capitol buildings, I believe Michigan, yes, and they have all these weapons, and they're talking about don't tread on me and don't oppress me, and this is tyranny to do COVID-19 lockdowns, to not allow businesses to be open, to not allow to go to social distance and everything. So I was really confused, why aren't they connecting these events together? And it kind of makes me wonder, maybe they don't know, or maybe they're not aware, or maybe they just don't want to give attention to neo-Nazi groups or to the racists. Okay, and on this note, so I know a lot of people then are going, oh, of course, well, Republicans What can you expect from a majority red state? Not exactly. So as soon as this happened, a guy came up and was like, no, no. And so he cut down the effigy and was like, that's not what we're about. That's not what this is about. That's not what we're trying to do. This is a peaceful rally. We're not having none of it here. Then Senator Mitch McConnell even was like, no, no hate should be allowed in Kentucky, which I'll touch on in a second. And a whole lot of Republicans have called against this and have said that this is not okay, this is wrong. But again, it seems as if nobody has talked about the motto and how it has been used by white supremacy groups. I'm very confused about this because I was under the impression that this motto had been used before by white supremacists and by neo-Nazis. Again, not as common as many others, but I was under the impression that this one was, because the idea for... It's hard to describe racism and it's hard to describe white supremacy, but the idea behind it is you are oppressing me because I can't oppress other people. You know, that, you know, like, my right to hate on people of color, POCs, and minority groups should trump your whole laws. should trump laws, should go over like any kind of logical common sense way of society. This is the part that I wanted to talk about in particular, because I think it's just really strange. Now, again, to be fair, maybe people just don't know, or maybe I misunderstood and maybe that's not what's going on. But considering that the neo-Nazi and the white supremacy groups in America have been trying really hard to like hijack the anti-lockdown protests, it seems really strange that like you wouldn't connect the dots there. That like, yeah, of course this happened because of everything else happening like on a national scale. But again, I don't know, maybe the news just doesn't want to give attention to that. Maybe they don't want to even say the words, because if they do, maybe it's giving the white nationalists the attention that they want. And so maybe that's not what they're trying to go for. Maybe they're trying to like temper that in the end. But I wanted to just kind of talk about it because I still think it's kind of strange though to not even mention it. It's not even a line at the end of an article. Also, in terms of like effigies in and of themselves, you know, that, like I said, they're usually historically part of like super racist history, and they're intended to cause fear. Like the intended message here is like this dude, whoever this protester was, wants Governor Bashir dead. So that is a bit of an extreme reaction to a man who has been trying to save lives. Governor Andy Bashir, by the way, let me just pause for a second. Governor Andy Bashir has also been kind of like touted as one of the best responders in terms of lockdowns and social distancing and making people like do what they're supposed to do during COVID-19, because he is really taken it to heart that people can die from this. And you can see that in his daily press briefings that he does at 5 o'clock. He is very much a person of the people. He is very much somebody who cares. And I think that it's really sad that somebody decided that they want him dead because they can't have their business open maybe, or if they can't go get a haircut. I don't know to the extent of why this person would want Governor Andy Bashir dead, but I'm really sad that I feel for him and for his family, because his family, they live very close. Obviously, because he's the governor, they live in close to the Capitol building in Frankfurt, and so this wasn't very far from their home. So yeah, it's scary, and it's very it's like makes me shudder to think that you would have to deal with something like that at your own home. But this has caused a lot of like talk online anyway about how the Republican Party was so like adamant about this being hateful and about how this is awful because it happened to, you know, Andy Bashir, who was a white man. But when this happened to Barack Obama, it wasn't as vocal, and it wasn't as like there wasn't as big of a reaction as there was with Governor Andy Bashir, which I also think is, yeah, I could see that. I could see like that happening back in the day. I don't know if that is exactly true or not, because honestly, when that happened, I was not on Twitter and everything. So I think that in terms of this, yeah, it's a bit of a mess. It's a bit of an awful, terrible mess. Anyway, now finally we're getting on into the Japan news. Sorry. Okay, so still good on the COVID-19 stats. So, kind of like though, being careful is still a good idea, just FYI, as I'm talking about this. But let's go ahead to the numbers. So confirmed cases 16,528, recovered cases 13,973, deaths 870, active cases 1,685, so that's down by a good 200 from last week. Tested 278,642. So that's only up by 2,472 from the past 2 days, I think. So that is the numbers. So now let's talk about Tokyo for a second. So Tokyo, on the 25th, so Monday. On Monday, there was the state of emergency lifted for Tokyo and surrounding areas and everything. Like, the whole nation is basically state of emergency lifted, and with restrictions. But again, voluntary restrictions based upon each prefecture, and each governor gets to decide what kind of restrictions they put in place with the new lifestyle initiatives. I'll put a link below. You can read about it. It takes a long time to get through all that, so just go ahead and take a look yourself. But yeah, Tokyo though, yesterday we had 10 new active cases, and then today we have 11 new active cases. And okay, so honestly, I have a feeling that the 39 prefectures that were lifted before Kansai and Tokyo and Kanagawa and other areas, when that happened, I think that even though they say with the new lifestyle restrictions that please don't travel to other areas, I think people did anyway. And I think that with the restrictions being lifted too soon, I think they were lifted too soon for the big metropolitan areas, that honestly in a couple weeks we're probably going to see another surge. We're probably going to see another spike. Again, not an expert, but if we're going off of what happens with China and with Korea and America and other countries, so if you lift the restrictions too early, what happens is people start just going back to their normal, and they stop being as health conscious as they used to be, and yet we get an increase in cases. This already happened too. This is kind of frustrating, I think, for a lot of people, because this has happened with Hokkaido. Hokkaido actually had a time where they got all the cases under control and everything was fine. Then they lifted the restrictions too early, and then they got another spike. And people are expecting for there to be another spike in Japan. There are a lot of there are quite a few news reports that are also reporting like Japan managed to avoid COVID-19, or Japan has been super successful with COVID-19. And to that I say, that is too early to tell. Yes, so far Japan has been supremely lucky, and somehow the cluster things have worked, and now they're being touted as like actually really great. Fine. Okay, great. Here's the thing though, it's too early to tell that. It's way too early to tell. Data in Japan is often done through handwritten notes that get faxed over. There's still a delay in talking about deaths and talking about cases that are active or not, because it takes time to process them and then to send them in. These are not real time, like immediate things. There's a delay in the information that gets to the general public, but also to the Health Bureau and also to the government at large. Calling it a success right now is still too early, in my opinion. I think like we need to wait. And also, we don't know that this data is accurate. As stated by more than a few of the WHO like experts, the idea of Japan being successful, yes, it seems to be, but because the testing has only been about 200,000, now going up to about 300,000, that is not nearly enough to get a big idea of how the country has, with antibodies testing, with have you been exposed, have you not been exposed. We don't know. The data here is good data, but it's also kind of incomplete. So people are like, is it really a success? Are you sure? Because we don't seem to have enough numbers to back up that idea, in my opinion and in many people's opinion. Okay, and then Although the numbers are significantly down, here's something I would really, really, really like to reiterate to people. The new active cases are down. However, we still have active cases, and once more with feeling, Japan's ICU beds are very, very few. So don't go out if you can avoid it. If you can still work from home, still work from home. This pandemic is not over. It is still ongoing. We are going to be transitioning into a new lifestyle, and the new lifestyle ideas that the government has are good ideas. I wish they would go harder on restrictions. I really do. I wish that there would, but anyway, in terms of this, like, don't go outside if you can avoid it. Remote work if you can, and wear a mask. Most people in Japan are still wearing a mask. I think like Japan is most Asian countries are good about keeping a mask on. However, just like with most things, after people get an idea of like a false sense of security, it's like, oh, well, if I don't wear my mask today, maybe it's fine. Oh, it's okay. The cases are really low. And it's like the new active cases are low, but the active cases are still ongoing. So please, 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 let's keep them low. Let's keep this curve flattened from what we can tell. Let's keep the good news rolling and not like just stop. We have to keep being aware and conscious of what's going on. Okay? Thanks. Awesome. All right, cool. Now, onwards. Okay, second story. Let's go into the Kyoto anime arson suspect can endure arrest after 10 months in a hospital. So finally, after dealing with his burns and dealing with his things, the arson suspect will indeed be put to trial. The families are finally going to see justice, and that is great. I am very happy about that. So I'm not going to say his name. I know that like people, it's on there. It's on the link. Like when you click on it, it's going to tell you. But I'm not going to like give him the notoriety that he wants. I'm going to take a page off of many other people who do news things. I'm just not going to do it. But he has sustained third-degree burns across 90% of his body in the fire, and the sympathy I feel is very deep and very, very obviously torn up about that, as you can tell. Yeah, no. Anyway, so he was suspected that people thought he was going to die. Like, people thought that he was not going to survive, but he did. So a lot of people are, like, trying to be, like, kind of sympathetic now. Like, oh, well, he's now, like, a sick old man. He's never going to be, like, mobile like he was before. He's going to suffer and things like that. And to that I say, too bad. 36 people died. 33 were injured just as badly, if not more. And I don't care. I hope that he gets sent to prison for life. In Japan, actually, there is still a hanging. You can still die by hanging in Japan, and people are wondering if that's going to happen to him. I don't really want that. I would just rather he sit in prison for life, and he has to deal with the fact that he did this, that he killed 36 people. That's all I would like, because he thought that like they stole his idea, or because like they took his idea. No, you don't get to do that. You don't get to claim vengeance on 36 people like that. That is absolutely horrible and absolutely horrendous. So I hope he rots in prison. That's what my hope is, personally. And I hope he suffers for it. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about today is actually something that kept getting put in my inbox, and So Japan aims to revive tourism industry by subsidizing people to go on vacation. Okay, so you saw a lot of these. A lot of news outlets were putting this up like, oh, Japan will pay for your vacation. No. Japan is not paying for your vacation. According to the Japan Times piece that was put out very recently, no. What is happening is that Japan is specifically giving out subsidies to people for domestic tourism. And it's not even happening now. This is going to be happening, I quote, after COVID-19, which is probably not going to be for a good year until after a vaccine has been implemented words. And it's probably, in my opinion, again, this wasn't in the news article. The news article was talking about how, oh, by the way, your subsidy is probably going to be like Niman, so 20,000 yen, so about 220-ish US dollars, 250. I'm not quite sure, but like it's it's not that much money. It's actually just not that much. But here's my opinion. I think that whole idea, the idea of like tourism boom, okay, and then plus some money to do it. I'm wondering if this is supposed to be rolled out when they have the new postponed Olympics coming. I say new, but when the postponed Olympics are like done next year, that's when they're going to implement this. The idea being that like, oh, you're here for the Olympics? Well, that's cool. Would you like to get some money off and go travel to like Fukuoka or Miyagi or like somewhere farther away from like a metropolitan area? Or maybe, of course, the more popular Osaka, Kyoto. You can go over there and then take a flight right back to Tokyo. And hey, guess what? Those flights are pretty cheap. Here's some money. You can do it that way. That's what I'm thinking it's going to be. I'm thinking that it's going to be like an Olympic bonus. Like people who come to the Olympics can have like a bonus there. Or it's people here in Japan who are maybe also like really stoked for the Olympics. And so the idea of like, oh, well, since I'm already taking work off for the Olympics, and also Japan usually was planning on having like holidays moved around so that the Olympics could happen. So they're like, oh yeah, maybe I could take time off for the Olympics anyway. So why not do this? Something along those lines. That's everything that I wanted to talk about for today. So thanks for coming along for this ride. Once again, everybody be safe, stay healthy, wash your hands, and we're gonna get through this. I'm about to start work, so I'm gonna start biking 2 hours in nice, hot, humid summer. Not looking forward to it. So yeah, but everybody stay safe, love you, and I'll see you next time. Bye.